We are just a few short weeks away from the next BTC halving, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing what my expectations are going to be when the Bitcoin halving happens for the fourth time. Guys, let's run the intro and get right down into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video update where today we are discussing Bitcoin's halving events and specifically what my expectations are going to be when we see our fourth Bitcoin halving event. Now, it's worth noting that I am no financial advisor. I cannot give you financial advice. All I can do is share my thoughts and opinions in the data as I personally do see it. If you do have access to a financial advisor, you should probably consult them and see what they have to say for themselves as well. Guys, let's get right down into this. So here on the chart, I've kind of stripped off everything and we're kind of just looking at Bitcoin's price action as a line graph, okay, and we can see how it's kind of performed over the long period of time. We have our vertical lines, coming in here. This first one is the first Bitcoin halving. This was the 26th of November 2012. We then have the second Bitcoin halving. That was the 4th of July 2016. We then have the third Bitcoin halving event, which was Monday, the 11th of May 2020, and then we have Saturday, the 20th of April 2024. That is our next Bitcoin halving event. Okay, so let's talk about what the Bitcoin halving event actually is so that you get a good understanding as to why this historical event has had profound effects to price. So the Bitcoin halving event, in real simplistic terms, it basically halves the rewards that a miner can earn for mining Bitcoin. Now, this is very significant, or at least it was, historically speaking, a very significant thing for Bitcoin. And the reason for that was that in the early stages where circulating supply of BTC was incredibly low, halving the amount that was newly minted Bitcoin was actually quite significant, right? It meant that there was less Bitcoin going into circulating supply. And already because the supply is small, the increase in demand saw significant growth in price, right? Everything when it comes to price action is due to supply and demand, right? And if there's an imbalance in supply and demand, you see volatility, and it goes in both directions. If, for example, you see an increase in supply and a decrease in demand, price will go down. And if you see an increase in demand while supply goes down, price goes up, right? And so we've kind of seen this recently with the Bitcoin spot ETFs, right? An increase in demand while supply hasn't really been increasing. And as such, we've seen a significant surge to the upside. So when we take a look at our Bitcoin halving events, and we know that every time a halving event happened, the mining operations were basically, the rewards for them were halved, okay? Meaning it's harder for miners to be profitable. They have to mine double the amount if they want to earn the same as what they were. Alternatively, of course, the price represents a significant surge to the upside because the supply is shrinking, or the supply, the newly minted supply has shrunk. You're not seeing as much go into circulation. Now, in the very early days, this was really positive for price action. You'd have the halving event and you'd see these kind of growth patterns afterwards. Even here in 2016, you'd have the halving event and you saw the growth afterwards. 2020, halving event and growth afterwards. Where we are at the moment, we've actually gone up into a new all-time high before the halving event. And this is the first time in Bitcoin's history that we have seen such an event. Okay, so it's important that we understand that what's happening right now due to the Bitcoin spot ETFs is vastly different to what we saw previously. Okay, so just bear in mind that although we are in the same kind of event as in a Bitcoin halving event, we've seen them before, people will expect the same kind of results, the underlying variables are different. Okay, we've done things differently in the last kind of 12 months or so than what we had seen in previous years gone by. And that's very important that we don't just, glance over that and ignore it, because we do have underlying variable differences. But let's go ahead and take a look at the first Bitcoin halving event just over here. And I'm going to have to expand this up quite a bit. You can see that the halving event happened and we actually saw almost instantaneous growth here, although it was followed by a really long period of ranging market before we actually kind of got a big explosive growth to the upside. Now, that particular range market here was basically before you saw the kind of exponential growth from the halving event over towards it was about 43 days. If you take into consideration just that sideways ranging market, it lasted 32 days. So it was about a month long, 4 weeks or so, where the market just did nothing. It was very stagnant. And this was after the Bitcoin halving event. Now, if we come on over to the second Bitcoin halving event, which is over here in 2016, you see something slightly different. Here you can see that actually there was a build-up towards the Bitcoin halving event and then a dramatic drop afterwards. Okay, a bit of a sell the news event. This lasted for a period of 29 days before we started to see significant growth back to the upside, and we breached up into a new all-time high. Again, we see very similar movements in terms of what's going on with new all-time highs after the Bitcoin halving event has actually occurred. Now, if we come on over into the most recent Bitcoin halving event of 2020, this would be in May, you can see here that we had growth going up into the Bitcoin halving event. And then we go into a bit of a ranging market sideways, actually slightly declining before we get into the next big parabolic moves. Now, this lasted for 69 days before we started to see some good growth. So about a kind of 2 months to 8 week period for BTC. Okay, from there, we saw exponential growth to the upside and the all-time highs that we knew back as the double tops, one in April and then another one in November 2021. And so we find ourselves with the next Bitcoin halving event, with the build-up going into it and a potential ranging market or a decrease afterwards. I think it's imperative that we understand that the stock market has seen exponential growth at the same time as the Bitcoin spot ETF. And I do think that Bitcoin's future is actually now tethered heavily to the stock market plays. And although a Bitcoin halving event historically has meant that we've seen some kind of sideways ranging market, we might actually find ourselves with something slightly different. My expectations are that we still see a bit of a decline in the Bitcoin price action. And I do think we're likely to see a bit of a move to the downside during or after the halving event. This will be very natural and aligns quite nicely to what we had seen previously, specifically here in 2016, where I expect us to kind of see a bit of a decrease before we run to the upside. A lot of this is also underpinned by some of the more fundamental things that are happening in the world, such as the Federal Reserve's reactions to inflation and CPI-based data. I am expecting the Federal Reserve to pivot. And what I mean by this is they're going to lower their interest rates in the US. That is going to actually have a negative impact on the stock market. And as such, a negative impact on the Bitcoin spot ETF, which will be a negative impact on Bitcoin directly, which will then have a negative impact on Ethereum and the altcoins, as I think everything is going to kind of follow suit. But I think it's going to be short-lived. And that move to the downside, I think, will be aligned with the Bitcoin halving event, a Federal Reserve interest rate cut or a pivot, and everything is going to tie us up nicely for a nice dip to be purchasing ahead of what is going to be a parabolic run to the upside, as we have seen every time after a Bitcoin halving event. I think we're going to see exponential growth for BTC and for the crypto market as a whole. Guys, let me know what your thoughts are on all of this in the comments down below. And if you have found it useful, smash the like button. If you're new, subscribe. And why don't you check out this video here to stay up to date with everything that is going on in the crypto space.